I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. We have a holiday special for today's episode of the Rough Draft Diaries, as it's Veterans Day, a holiday honoring military veterans. That's individuals who have served in the United States Armed Forces. This coincides with other holidays, including Armistice Day and Remembrance Day, that all mark the anniversary of the end of World War I, a war that ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day on the 11th month of 1918. For this holiday special, I thought the perfect place to go would be the Wood County Museum, a museum that just recently, back in 2017, shared a World War I exhibit and archive called Over There, Send Word, the Wood County Boys Are Coming.
You know, Wood County, you wouldn't think a little rural county having such a rich archive of historical objects related to this war. We were met with tremendous support from our community. And in fact, we asked, this was the first time that I had asked community members to loan us objects that were meaningful to them, of family members. And we had stuff all the way from Cleveland. And so it's a pretty neat connection to be able to put out there.
That's Holly, a curator at the Wood County Museum. And as she mentioned, she came in close contact with the artifacts that were donated and collected as a part of this World War I exhibit. So we'll pass it on to her to tell the story of the members of our own community who fought, with some returning from the battlefront of World War I.
In a community like Wood County, which is primarily rural, many of these men probably never really left the county or ventured far from the county. They may have gone up to Toledo. They probably never left the state of Ohio. And then, boom, they're asked to get on a boat and go to France and fight a war that they might not have any personal connection or interest in at all. The draft was instated in between ages 18 to 45. You had to sign up, and you went down to your draft office, and if your number was called, then you got on a boat and you went to Europe. Now, the men in Wood County would have been under what was known as Company H out of Bowling Green, or at least in the Bowling Green area, and they were led by Captain Ray Dudley Avery. And there were some enlisted men that were already in Company H, because we here in Bowling Green, we had an armory. Those men of Company H, they were actually stationed at the border of Mexico in 1916, and their job was to really manage the border because there was a revolution going on in Mexico at the time, and they were really concerned about it spilling over into the United States. And so when World War I officially begins, those troops from Company H, they come back up north and they get on a boat and they go over to France.
One of those men would be George Grover, a private out of Bowling Green. He ended up fighting in almost every single battle the Americans took part in, making it home without any injuries. The museum received the letters that he wrote home to his wife Doris, describing the war. The museum also received the letters that were sent to Doris regarding her brother Harry, who was not as fortunate as George.
As I was going through the letters and processing them into the collection, there is one in there that's dated November 29th, 1918, and it's written to Miss Doris Avery, and it says, "Your letter of November 2nd concerning Harry Avery just received, and I have been to the offices and gathered what information I could. Harry is carried on the company roster as wounded in action September 29th. From what I found out, he is wounded pretty bad, but there has been no official report from my hospital of his death." So Harry is listed in the 1919 Bowling Green High School yearbook as one of the few men who died during World War I. Now, he was in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, and he was wounded September 29th. He ends up dying a month later. But I think it's so nice that this Paul W. Lundberg takes the time to write Harry's sister and let her know the state of his brother. He says, "It's a very sad thing if what you think happened to Harry is true, as he and I were very good friends. The officer talked with is going to write to someone in the headquarters for further information, but it's doubtful whether any such information can be gained there. However, if I find out anything more, I'll write and let you know." It really humanizes the story. He was so young and served his country and died as a result of the Meuse-Argonne. it's sometimes hard to think, like I had earlier said, these people, they're farmers, they're country people who probably have never left the state of Ohio, and then they're given, they give the ultimate sacrifice.
Holly continued to share the stories of other individuals who made great sacrifices, like Fred Adams, Shirley Conkler, or Margaret Lehman. Now, we don't have enough time to share those stories within the 6-minute episode of the Rough Draft Diaries, but they will be available online, almost as a companion piece to this episode. And whether you're listening to these stories on the Rough Draft Diaries, or thinking of your own story, I hope you do get the opportunity today to remember those, as the poem goes, who once lived, felt the dawn, saw the sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now lie in Flanders Field. I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.